Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the 8th chapter, Megilah Perek Ches, of Megilas Esther. Now, we begin at a great moment. Haman's just been killed. The great threat, it feels, has been removed. However, we'll soon see, it has not been removed. Right? But Yomahu, on that day, which means the same day Haman is killed, Nosan HaMelech Achashverosh Esther Malka, he gives to Esther the queen, right? So he's giving it in not on the personal capacity, but in her royal capacity. And he's now really treating her and respecting her as that. So he has two relationships with her, right? In the past, he's kind of almost looked down upon her and formally called her Esther the queen. But that all began to change in the key moments where where something hit him, as we saw, and he realized, begins to sense something very powerful within her. And then she shattered him. She forced him to confront the fact that he was living a life that was a facade and a fake. And that's part of what allowed him to gain the perspective to realize that Haman had been manipulating him and using him while playing on all his insecurities. And in that moment of awakening, he'd gone and realized that Haman was horrific to him. Haman had been planning to kill her. And so Haman's now dead. But now he gives to Esther the queen a space Haman Tzorei Yudim. The house basically gives her, she's now in charge of the imperial Nazi department, effectively, right? The home of Haman. Not the home of Haman, the home of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And by the way, through this chapter, he's now going to always be looking at people in the context of who they really are. What is their essence? He's not giving her the house of Haman. He's saying, you take over the office of Haman, you take over the anti-Semitism department. You're now in charge of the state national anti-Semitism ministry, basically. So, okay, and then something shocking happens. And it's easy to just skip over this verse and not notice how powerful it is. Mordechai came before the king, ki higida Esther mahula, because Esther told her what he meant to her. Just stop and realize this. 1 minute ago, Achashverosh would have been so paranoid. He means so much to you. Yes, he raised me as a child. He's, in fact, according to one opinion in the Gemara, as we saw earlier, they'd even eventually got married. Who is he to you? My husband, your husband. A minute ago, he'd have been so threatened by Mordechai, I'd have killed him. But Achashverosh, at least on the reading we went through last time, based on Rabbi Weinberg's teaching, Achashverosh has changed. Something has really changed within him. Now, remember, at the very beginning, early on at least, I told you what the Vilna Gaon says. The Vilna Gaon says, he has different commentaries on the Megillah, different Pirushim. And one of them is called the Derech HaRemez, the hint. The way the Megillah is written, each character expresses something that's naturally occurring within all of us. So, or natural possibilities within all of us. And Achashverosh is the Yetzer Hara. That's our classical, because we're humans, we have these very powerful drives. This is not a particularly sophisticated maliciousness, but it's very impulsive. The drive for honor that he had at the beginning, the drive for gluttony, for wealth, for showing off, for lust, for all the things that Achashverosh does. Yetzer Hara, the natural negative drives. And the females in the story are playing the role of the bodily brain and body that is under the influence of this. But Esther is not primarily under Achashverosh's influence. The first woman of Vashti was, and then tried to fight back before it was too late. It's now the addict whose craziness has already taken over the brain. They have, when it's too late, they can't save themselves. And she's gone. But Esther is a bodily or human, if you like, voice that is in touch deeply with its soul, who is Mordechai. And the other parts, the kind of instinctive parts of the brain, are not able to completely dominate it, but they can become rectified. You see, a lot of our natural drives can become rectified. So Achashverosh has changed. He's become, to some degree, rectified. Now, but if you go back to the Gemaras and Midrashim, you'll see there are different opinions to whether Achashverosh does change or doesn't change, but we're going with the view that he does. He seems to have changed. And something's happened now. And now, let's leave aside what the Vilna Gaon said. Well, that's amazing to read the whole Megillah that way. But even on a simple level, Achashverosh is no longer insecure. Remember, Esther got him. He walked outside. He had an awakening. He had an awareness. And he stopped trying to lie. And he had genuine emotions. And he spoke about them. And for the first time in the Megillah, we met emotional states of Achashverosh that were not prefixed with the letter Ka. It was like, he's not showing anymore. He's touched his authentic self and it's changed him. Haman is gone. And now Esther can say, okay, if you're in this level of genuineness and authenticity and healing and so on, I'm going to tell you something that I've not been able to tell you yet. because, you would have killed us, how we said it yesterday. But I want to tell you who Mordechai is to me. And of course, in the context of their relationship, now the way Achashverosh looks at it, he's not threatened by it. He can understand, okay, I was using Esther, I had this relationship with her. She's had this relationship with Mordechai. It doesn't threaten me anymore. Now I'll work on, what the way forward will be. But there's no threat. It's not, this is authentic. This was a game. This is real. This is not. But more than that, it's the relationship between Mordechai and Esther that had saved his life. If Mordechai and Esther hadn't had that relationship, he would be dead now. So there's a lot of things he's viewing very, very differently at this stage, right? Something has really shifted in him. He's not threatened by people anymore. He's not afraid of people. He's not afraid of the fact that you've had this lifelong relationship with so-and-so, right? I don't know how that resolves their relationship. What happened afterwards, the Gemara discusses, but the point is that he's no longer that same narcissistic, fragile person that he was. Something very profound and very real has taken place. He now wants to deal with truth. Let's stop the games. Let's deal with reality. Now, we'll see he'll have moments where he shifts back a little bit, but that's the basic trajectory and dynamic forward, which is an unbelievable change. And she understood from the beginning, or at least from halfway through, this is the only way that the Jewish people can survive. The Jewish people can only survive in a world, really, where the world itself has developed an authenticity, where the games and the facade and the illusion and where you can turn anything into anything else. And you can turn a military defending itself and doing everything it can to keep civilians alive. You throw words like genocide at it, or you can, you can just invert anything. Like you're running a PR political campaign and you've got to which words to use here and which words. That world, the Jewish people can't really make it in that world. That's a world that would always come to kill us or demonize us. That's what she says. I need the world of authenticity. And in the world of authenticity, because what we're looking for and what we're standing for is the authentic relationship with God himself. That threatens people who want to play around in the world of illusion. That level, that sense that maybe God is in this world and cares about it, and maybe I'm not the highest authority in the world, is very threatening to people, especially people with a fragile ego. Achashverosh, we saw all the way through the story, is subconsciously afraid that maybe God's city will be rebuilt and usurp him. He's trying to pretend to be God. The human who wants to be God cannot deal with the Jew in the world, right? Not that all Jews aren't perfect either, and also don't like. Lots of Jews hate their own Jewishness, hate this notion of God too. And by the way, when I say hate the notion of God, I don't mean whether religious or secular or atheist or not. I think it's all subconscious. There's a lot of people who hate the idea. They want to do this or that. They may be very religious outwardly or not, but they are threatened by the idea of a God-centered world. They want a self-centered world. They want to be God in the world, right? It doesn't matter how religious or secular they are. This deep impulse is there. And Esther said, look, let's stop playing the games. Let's leave the games world. Let's go to the authentic place. Who are you for real, right? Do you want reality? Do you want to understand what's really fulfilling for you? Do you want what's really good for you? And in that world which Achashverosh has suddenly discovered and jettisoned all his old stuff, she can say, I want to tell you who Mordechai is to me. And he has no problem with it, right? On the contrary, let's bring him closer. If this is the guy who's really cared for you when I didn't, if this is the guy who's really nurtured you, then you know what? If this is the guy because of your relationship with him, I'm alive today, let me meet him. I know I've met him as the lobbyist in the games we were playing before. Now I want to meet the real one. Ba'alifnei HaMelech, now he comes before the king. Okay. Vayasar HaMelech es tabatoi, and more than that, the king now removes the ring for the second time in the story. Asher ha'avir meHaman, which he's taken back from Haman. Vayitzna leMordechai, and he says, do you know what, Mordechai? This always really belonged to you. Right? This belongs to you. And again, on the Vilna Gaon's level, Haman is the angel, is like the prosecuting angel, or actually even I think it's even I forget it's the Satan, the prosecuting angel, or the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. I think Mukhal is angel, whichever way. But I don't want that world now. I don't want the world of prosecution. I want the world of elevation. And Mordechai, that's what you stand for, giving me life, where Haman really wanted to take everything away from me, right? You stand for, and by the way, notice that's what happens to the human being. If we're in the world of self-centeredness, if we're in the world where everything is a lie, then the Haman voice, the destructive voice will rule us. We will prosecute everyone around us. We'll be angry with them. They'll never be good enough. We will have the voice of prosecution all the time. If we shift into the world of authenticity, of God-centeredness, of not playing games, of being honest and truthful, we will always hear the voice. We will hand the ring over to the inner voice that is plugged into what you call the soul or godliness. That voice speaks inside us. There's a Mordechai speaking inside every one of us, and we give the ring to him. So every one of us has Achashverosh's choice. We give the ring to the Haman, or we want to be self-centered, we want to play the games. That will be the voice that speaks inside us. Or we don't. And we listen to our Esther, to our let's not be the center of the world, let's be authentic, and suddenly we'll be giving the ring to our Mordechai voice inside us. You see how powerful the story works on every single level. Okay, but let's go back to the natural level. He realizes what's good for him. He realizes who's been good for him, and he's going to give the ring of running the state now, or running the empire. Mordechai gives the Mordechai. Then Esther puts Mordechai in charge of the imperial anti-Semitism department. Now, why do we need to learn this technology? What happened? Achashverosh said, Esther, you can be in charge of it. Esther says, well, here's Mordechai. Okay, let's give the ring to Mordechai. Okay, now Esther says, now I'm going to put you in charge of what I was going to be in charge of. No, the point is that Esther understood that Mordechai is the guy who should be in charge of it. But it wasn't appropriate to do until step one, she's been put in charge. Step two, she's introduced Mordechai. The kings liked Mordechai of his own volition, empowered him of his own volition, and now she can say, okay, so now I could put in there, yes, that's fine. But the point is that it's not just that she's got this relationship with Achashverosh and she says, can I do this? No, she deliberately explained who Mordechai is, introduced him, and the king of his own volition wants Mordechai. Why? Because we saw the whole point of what she said in the last chapter was, can we do what's good for you? Yes, what's good for you will be what's good for the world, right? But can we stop letting people manipulate you? And I'm not going to manipulate you either. I will always want this to be something that's good for you. Because in the end, it will be good for me. When people can touch their authentic needs and authentic self, it will work for us. And that's what she's doing. She's always sensitive to do this. And you'll hear more and more of this in the chapter 2. The toast of Esther, and Esther increased, which means now something new is happening. And she spoke before the king. And she fell before his feet. And she cried. And she begged. To remove the evil of Haman Agagite. But I thought he's dead. In his plan. He planned against the Jews. Let's stop and realize, this is the possible when we suddenly stop and realize one second. Hasn't she already begged for the Jewish people? Didn't she in the last chapter say, Nafshi b'sheilasi, ami v'akashasi, right? Give me my life and my people? No. Unbelievably, that wasn't the agenda last chapter. She said, that is my personal request and that is my agenda. But, she said, right, if you'd have sold us into slavery, I would right now be quiet. Because the damage is not worth what it's hurting the king. This is hurting you, Achashverosh. And that's when he suddenly realized, my goodness, who's this one who's been doing this terrible thing? And she says, stop playing the games, right? I know you're involved. Yes, it's Haman. But you signed off on it too. Let's not play. And he walked out in his anger. And then when he came back in, he realized he had this mind shift and he killed Haman. But he never saved the people. Right? She said, okay, now can I come and talk about our people? Right? Now, the other thing to notice over here is that remember what Mordechai had originally instructed her. If you go all the way back to chapter 4, right, when the decree first came out, and Mordechai said to her at the time, right, he gave a copy of the law, and he asked her to go, to come to the king, to beg for the people. She hadn't done it yet. She'd explained to the king that she wants her people safe, but she's not done the begging. This chanen is now. Now, first she had to change him, get rid of Haman. There's a few things that had to happen first. Now she's in a position to finally do it. The other incredible thing to remember here, and I pointed this out earlier, is there's been so many hints running all the way through the Megillah about the conflict between Yaakov and Esau, the conflict going back into the Garden of Eden, the conflict that ran through the twin brothers Yaakov and Esau. And we've seen hints all the way to these episodes, Shaul and Agag, Yosef as well against Esau, all these various things. Here we have an exact one, because when the prophet Hosea describes the struggle between Yaakov and Esau, the angel of Esau, it uses this exact phrase that it says, right? Yaakov overcame the angel when the angel of Esau fought with him all night. Bacha cried, and begged. Remember how everything Esau did to stay in the game of history? Screaming the great cry that he got a blessing for in the end. So Mordechai had to go out and scream the great cry in chapter 4. The angel of Esau cries and begs, so we have to cry and beg. In other words, all that we saw that kept alive in the world, that the desire to kill us, is a message to us of what we've got to rise up to and do the parallel equivalent of if we want to bring the world to perfection or if we want to just be saved. So this is an undoing of the struggle of the night when Yaakov and the angel of Esau fought all night. What kept the angel of Esau alive a little bit to be able to do a bit of damage. Remember, he damaged the leg of Yaakov, which damaged his ability to fully function in the world. That's now being undone over here. So you see the power of these parallels happening. And of course, the Yosef Melech's Tabata, that king handing the ring, that's what Parah did to Yosef, right? The antidote for Esau. So we're seeing these hints again and again and again. Now, listen to what she says. She wants to remove the plan of Haman. The king stretched out the scepter of gold. And she gets up and stands before the king. And she says, listen to these words. Again, only if it's good for the king. But of course, this is what everybody's been saying all the way through the story. Haman said the same thing when he wanted to kill the Jews. If it's good. So this could be either way. It could be the fake or the real. If I found personal favor, well, that's real. And she emphasizes, and this is fitting before the king. Right? This is now, I only want you to do this if this feels fit to you. And if you think I'm a good person. Right? Not just somebody who's now got the better of you and saved your life and whatever, right? But are we there? Because if we're there, then I would like you to do this. Can we please retract the master plan of Haman, son of Hamadassah, the Agagite, like saying the Nazi, who wrote, she says, spelling it all out, no games here, no nothing, who wrote about the final solution to the Jewish problem. In every province to kill every single Jew. Because if I'm valuable to you, right, how can I look? Eicha, of course, the same word, the word that goes back to the Garden of Eden. Yaakov, where are you, humanity? But also the word of the destruction. And she can now say it to him. The same word that we cried when we lost the temple, which till now has been his big fear. You couldn't say the Eicha word. You guys still crying over the temple, but she's able to use the word again. The same disaster that happened to us in the temple, it's happening here. And even worse. How could it be that I see the evil is going to hit my people? My birthplace is going to be destroyed. When my parents, or she doesn't have parents anymore, my family, my friends are gone, I've lost all context in this world. So I want it to be good for you, Achashverosh, but if you care about me at all, if we do have this relationship, if there's anything here at all, I remember you asked me what was my she'ela and bakosha, my personal request and my agenda. I've told you, my nation is my agenda, bakosha. But personally, I can't exist if they don't exist. Right? I'm not just me. When I came to you, there was Jewish people fasting for me. I'm an embodiment of a national identity. I'm a channel through which Jewishness is expressed. And that's so deep inside me that what you see before you is that something what you want, dead or not? Right? If they die, I'm dead. So what is it you see in me that you saw in me that made you want me to be your queen? Because I'm going to lose all of that. So there's an immense power of recognition going. And again, all of this could only happen in the world of authenticity. None of this could happen. And that she didn't do this before, because this would have been an authentic cry to a person who's measuring everything in the fake world. She has had to get him on this journey, and only now can she finally deal with the issue. Well, he replies, notice how he calls them now. He just say Esther Mordechai. No. First of all, she didn't have Mordechai. We don't know where he was just now. He wasn't even there. But he calls Mordechai into the room and says, okay, listen, you two, I'm relating to you as Esther as the queen, right? That's how I'm looking at you. And Mordechai as the Jew, which was, of course, the way he was described at the very beginning, as this was what made him not bow down to Haman. Suddenly in Achashverosh's mind, that's it. The same, this power of not going with the crowd is exactly what made you save my life, when your personal agenda should have had me dead. You wouldn't have to risk your life, right? Not only that, you got Esther out of the palace, and yet you didn't do that. You being a Yehudi, being a Jew, meant you were intensely loyal to me. Your loyalty to God, your denial of all the human power structures of idolatry, which is what the Mefarshim explain the word Yehudi means. A Jew means, literally means one who's grateful, right? But in practical terms, it means one who denies all the idolatry. But it means you have you live a life on what is the will of God and what is the right thing in every situation, whether it seems to suit you or not. It was that made you not bow down to Haman's idol, that made you not bow down to Haman, right? That made you not want to be subjugated by him. But it was that same thing that made you loyal enough to me that even when it wasn't in your interest, you saved my life. So you as the Jew, Mordechai the Yehudi, the Jew, and Esther as the queen, you too, that's what I want you to be the queen and I want you to be the Jew. Right? So there's a huge change happening over here. And there's such a radical shift. This is like so unbelievable. Okay. But he calls them in that, Hine beis Haman nasati le'Esther. I've given the house of Haman to Esther. And I hung Haman on a tree. For the fact that he wanted to kill the Jews. Now, why is he saying this to them? Of course they know all that. I want you to know how well I've done. I'm doing really well on my scorecard. But Atam and you, write what you want, what's good in your eyes about the Jews. In the name of the king, with the seal of the king. Because anything written with the name of the king and sealed can't be repealed. What's going on over here? Until we realize this is what's going on. They'd asked him to repeal the law. He's now explaining he can't repeal the law. They're saying, but if you don't repeal the law, the best we'll get is 2 laws sent out everywhere. And every local governor is going to have the law of Haman and the law of Mordechai. Which one will they follow? And you can hear the metaphors for life. Every human being in the world has the law of Haman and the law of Mordechai. And we struggle with our free will choices. We have the voices in our heads, self-centeredness. Then we get into the evil world of all the stuff that Haman's there. God-centeredness, then we get all the good, right? You see what goes on? It's this is why it's so deep and so... Okay, but let's go back to the simple level. Which one will they follow? And that's why we need you to do a special measure and recall the letters. This works even better according to the Malbim, who says the letters were not yet publicized. So the theory there could be a recall. And he says, no. First of all, he's going to come to the idea, I can't recall. It's constitutionally unconstitutional for me to do it. So there's no recall here. But don't worry. The very fact that I acted so swiftly and I've killed Haman, every governor will understand which is the authentic one. Every governor will see that the kingdom has shifted now. Esther is in charge of the anti-Semitism department. They'll get the message. Haman's dead. They've got the message. They've understood. I've symbolically explained exactly which is the legitimate one. So go and write it. It will get out there and the right thing will happen. Now, of course, the 2 voices means anyone who wants to hear the wrong thing will. If you want to hate somebody, you will. You want to love somebody, you will, right? You know, it's like you look at a war or a conflict. Everybody picks the side that and then if I'm in pain because of you, then you're evil. We do it on personal arguments. We do it all the time, political debates, right? It's fine. But the average person in the middle is going to understand exactly where they're meant to go, right? Now, the ambiguity, this, of course, is all Haman. Haman created the decree. Haman created the constitutional revolution that you cannot repeal the law all the way back in the first chapter, which means that Haman has engineered this situation now where it cannot be easily resolved. And that's going to play a very important role. Okay, but therefore, since I've done all this, write what you want and you'll see the result will go the right way. And they called the scribes of the king on that day, on the 3rd month, Now, why did it take this long? So this may have been a very long process. This was not an overnight transformation of Achashverosh. They could just do everything on the same day. Esther's been working to solidify his growth. The other point which the Malbim raises is it may have taken this long because there were messengers going all over the empire. They had to get back. Why? Because they wanted it to be the exact same messengers. If they sent it with the elite messengers have gone out already, right? If you now send the other ones waiting in town, they're the less good ones, then the message may not have the same impact. So wait for the first ones to come back from the furthest reaches of the empire and now send them out again. Okay, whichever way. So now what's going to happen over here? They called them back on the third month, the month of Sivan, the 23rd day. Now here, you will hear, if you listen carefully to the words, you will hear something unbelievable. They will be so familiar. Everything Mordechai commanded Yehudim about the Jews, all the different governors of Medinas and the local provincial leaders of the states, Hashem Ahoid Kush, from India to Ethiopia. Assume that's the translation. Shavas Medina, 127 states. Medina, Ksava. Every little city-state gets it in its language. In its script, Am Kilshona, every nation in its tongue, Yehudim Kirsavim Kilshonim, and also the Jews. It's word for word the way it was written when Haman originally gave the instructions, with the exception of adding the Jews in. That's the only change that's going to happen. But Yichtoi b'Shem HaMelech, same exact, right? They wrote it in the name of the king Achashverosh. V'Yachtoi b'Tabas HaMelech, and it's sealed with the ring of the king. And they sent these letters out in the hands of the runners, Basusim in the horses, all the delivery companies going on, Achashtaronim, Bnei Ramachim, right? The various different channels of distribution. We don't even know what all these words exactly mean, says the Gemara, but that's what's going on. Shenosan HaMelech LaYehudim, who gave the king. Now, if you remember last time, in the third chapter, you can literally compare it word for word. So, all these things say, yeah. So it was sent out, and what's it going to be? It was lahashmid laharigel abed kol yehudim min avad zaken tafanoshim, etc. To listen to the words, and you'll listen to how they're basically the same words with just a subtle shift. So this sentence is being added in now. That the king has given the Jews the right to defend themselves. Lahashmid, here's the words, lahashmid laharigel abed, right? So far the same words, to destroy, to obliterate, to kill, right? It's called, now he's added, kol chel amu medina hatzarim oisam, right? Who all the enemies of the Jews. So, in other words, the original one said to kill all the Jews, now it says to kill all those who want to kill the Jews, right? Basically, we've just reinterpreted the earlier letter, right? Tafanoshim shalom avois, women, children, and all their stuff to take. Now, why is that in there? They don't, in the actual story, when they get to the fight later on, they will not, no women and children are going to get killed. No, and I will emphasize again and again, Visa lo shalach hasiyadon. They didn't send their hand out against the spoils. They didn't do what it says that you could take the spoils. But that's because this is not really the intention. This is just rewriting the original letter, just changing a sentence or adding, right? We're going to take everything Haman wrote, so it will be as similar as possible to the original letter. And what we're showing you is we're going to add in a sentence that will change the meaning of the letter. Take all these things, kill, destroy, obliterate everybody, right? But instead of the word Jew, it's going to be those who come to kill the Jews. That's what it is. So now what we're doing is we're turning Haman's intention, and it will boomerang against anybody who gets up to kill Jews, right? So this is, this sounds like it's, we're killing everyone. No. Well, unless they happen to gather with weapons to kill the Jews. But it's everybody who gathers. We've changed, go and kill all the Jews. And that's, of course, why in reality they won't take anything. They won't even take a penny off this thing. Because they understand that's Haman's version. We're not going to do what Haman did. But we're deliberately using his text. We're deliberately using his horrific language so that the governors can see that what's going on now is we're doing what evil wanted, but it's got a boomerang on itself. And this is a metaphor for history. And it's not a metaphor. The whole Megillah really is this metaphor. Everything evil does in the short run can do horrific things. In the long run, it must destroy itself. The very same letter with the very same text will now not destroy a single Jew. On the contrary, by telling the Jews to protect themselves, it's giving state sanction to training, arming, and joining them. In fact, the military is going to join them on the day and make sure they're protected. And if anybody does get up to kill them, the only result that will happen is whatever intention the people who come to kill them have will bounce back on them. Right? The more viciously they want to kill them, they'll just kill themselves effectively. Right? The more they fight, the more they'll die. And of course, nobody needs to get up and try and kill Jews, and then nobody dies. But that's in essence what they've done. What we've taken is the wording of Haman. We can't change his law. We wanted to repeal it altogether, but we can't. Haman has engineered a situation now where anybody who wants to get up, any Nazi who gets up to kill the Jews is basically going to face their own death. That's what's going to happen. It's so powerful when we see this, because this is the whole point of the Megillah, is that evil can win in the short run and do horrific things, and in the long run, it can only destroy itself, and in doing so, it will reveal God. Okay, Same words again, right? Copy of the documents given. Now remember what the Malbim said earlier, that what's revealed to the people according to the Malbim is a different document. So according to him, this isn't now there's lots of billboards up contradicting each other, which is how we'd normally learn. That's one possible way of reading. But the billboards don't say that. Their billboards only say one thing. Until now, the billboard has said, everybody be ready for the 13th of Adar. Now the billboard says, what's revealed to all the people is that the Jews should be ready for this day. So it suddenly changed. Everybody a minute ago understood, but it never said what to do on that day. The inference was, it's probably Haman is in charge of this, so it's probably going to be the mass extermination of the Jews. Now just that the Jews should be ready. Oh, well then it can't be the mass extermination of the Jews. So, right, you see what's been happened. According to the Malbim, it's so beautiful because what it means is the very way Haman had kept everything officially hidden has now completely boomeranged against him. It allows for a complete reinterpretation. The law's not been clearly given. People have not unambiguously worked out what's going on. As or even before the posters went up, the news of Haman's death probably came along to them all. He was dead before the posters got to most parts of the state. And it's not, and that left everyone confused. He's dead, so what does this mean that we got it ready? Now comes the next poster and says, right, what does it mean? Haman's dead and I'm getting a letter saying we got to kill all the Jews. If he's dead, if the king's killed him, he probably doesn't want all the Jews dead. So, now comes the new letter. And that's the point. What does it mean that history looks one way? It's going to get reinterpreted. The way it looks today is not the final picture. Okay, so and the signs actually say now explicitly that this will be vengeance against any enemy. So don't be an enemy of these guys, right? If you're an enemy, it's not going to go well. Right? The riders went out very quickly. Hurriedly, speedily, hastily. The law is now given in Shushan, the capital. So what we've done is we were not able to repeal the law. We were able to say that the law is now meaning the opposite of what it originally meant. And now everybody's got a choice. You want to go, don't go and kill Jews, nothing will happen. Try to kill them, and you're going to have a lot of trouble. Mordechai and the Mordechai went out from before the king. Right, so he's got the Levush Malchus, he's now wearing royal clothes. Now he's done that once before, when Haman took him around before. But now Chashverosh himself says, this is last time I did it because of Haman. This time I'm doing it because of you. I want you, right? You are now effectively the Malchus. You are now an emblem of my kingship in the world, right? In other words, if we go back into the body, the king, the kind of the simple drive, we've now put the Mordechai voice, the soul in charge, and that's how we're now going to manifest. The king wants people to look at him and see, this is how I want the state to be. So he's coming out, Tcheles, Achora, Teresav, all this beautiful Tcheles, blue clothing and white, and Teresav with his tremendous crown. Remember when Haman had said to the king, right, in the 6th chapter, he should put a crown on his head. The king never did that. That's bridged too far. But now he's put a crown on his head. Right, Gedoyla v'tachlech butz ma'argomon, right, all these linen, purple, va'ir Shushan salav v'samecha. Shushan was overjoyed. And now comes to the Jews was light, simcha was joy, sasan was elation, and yakar preciousness. And the Gemara says something amazing. It says, it proves from all the verses, whenever we use the word oira, light, that's Torah, right? Ner mitzvah the Torah are, right? Torah is light. Simcha is Yom Tov, is the festivals. Sasan is the elation we have on the ability to have circumcision and the covenant with God. Yakar preciousness, that's the tefillin. So if the Gemara is right, then why did the Pasuk not say, there's a religious revival happening now. The Jews are getting back into the commandments. Earlier on, they were assimilating that. So why did not just say, Torah, right? The Jews had Torah and Yom Tov festivals and circumcision and wearing tefillin, right? And again, the answer, I think I made a point earlier with Midrashim, there's the overt text, which is the conscious layer, and the subconscious text, if you like. Normally, you consciously keep mitzvahs, and you might feel bubbling up some of these emotions, right? You learn Torah, you might say, it's beautifully enlightening, right? I'm keeping Yom Tov, I'm doing all the mitzvahs. Oh, I'm getting some joy, right? It kind of is the beneath the surface layer that makes its way up. The surface layer is the mitzvahs. in Shushan, where we've touched the authentic self so deeply, the inner dimension becomes the surface layer. If you ask them consciously, what are you doing right now? They wouldn't say, I'm learning Torah. They say, I'm being enlightened. I'm getting light. What do you, I'm actually thinking about I'm reading these texts and studying this idea, but that's not what my conscious experience is. I'm having a day of joy. How are you doing it? Oh yeah, I'm not doing this and this and this, but that's not my conscious. I experience, don't do this and don't do this and do this. I experience this as simcha. If you ask me how I'm doing these various things, right? It's like, I don't even realize, it's a bit like the football on the pitch. I'm playing football. But yeah, I'm not doing this rule, I'm not touching my hand, but I'm not thinking about the rules, right? My conscious experience is the joy of the game. So that's the conscious experience, not all the don'ts, right? I'm in love, there's tremendous marriage. Yeah, that means I'm not allowed to have an affair or even talk to this one. I got to live in this house and do. I'm not thinking of the rules. The rules are like just the natural, they're like almost in the background. Of course, I'm doing all the rules, but the foreground experience has become, in other words, everything that's normally hidden beneath the surface has now come to the surface, and there is a whole new relationship. This is not about keeping law. This is not about keeping religion. This is about the depth of relationship with God and the sense of the fulfillment in all of this. The whole story has revealed so much about authenticity and so much about God's revelation coming out that we're no longer living on the superficial layer. Everyone's plugged into their much deeper layer, and what's happening is a whole new level of consciousness about what Torah is, about what God is, about what that is. And that's going to power its way through into the next chapter, a whole new keeping of Torah. Okay, we're pretty much out of time, but here we are. So Mishnah, there was feasting and Yom Tov and rejoicing. For Rabbi Me'amei Aretz Misyahadim, many people were becoming Jewish. Right? Some may have been converting, some may have been keeping the Nachad laws. Ki nafal pachad Yehudim aleim, the awe of the Jews had fallen upon the world. Right? But not the awe of, like in the anti-Semitic world of, the Jews are running the world. Right? Because you had that too. But this was not pachad Mordechai. That we're going to see the relationship with Mordechai soon. This is a pachad, this is a sense of awe of what the Jew stands for. There is a relationship with God. It has penetrated down into this world. There's a point of contact in God and man, and we want to be part of that story too. It's available to all of humankind. Some will join the Jewish people. Some will become Jew-ish. In other words, keep the Noahide law, right, or whatever exactly it is. These are all things that are happening, but there's this process now of a shifting consciousness within the Jewish people. And that's creating an awakening across the entire empire. So this is no longer going to be about a political struggle, but it's going to be a fundamental shifting in the potential of humanity to live up to everything that God wanted us to live up to since the day we left the Garden of Eden. But of course, as we've seen all the way through, the Purim story has all been in the Ginas HaMelech, the garden of the king. And the fruit that came off the tree, from the tree, that's where Haman is born. As we saw in the Gemara. Gemara says, where's Haman come from? In the Garden of Eden, when it says that, did you eat from the tree? Haman's the negative energy come off the tree. He's now gone back onto the tree. And so here we are, ready to put humanity to exactly where it needs to be. And that's exactly where we are at the end of chapter 8. So this has now produced something revolutionary. It took the authenticity that revolutionary Achashverosh, it took those weeks of work by Esther to get us to the point now where everybody and everything's changing. This is not a political manipulations anymore. That's gone. Right? There's no longer, everything is beneath the surface and now come to the surface. And the power of that's produced is a shifting of the consciousness itself. And that means we're now seeing things we never saw before, seeing the reinterpretation of history, seeing the shifting of the meaning of Torah, seeing the shifting of meaning of Jewish people in the world, humanity in the world, is all happening here. So that now sets us up amazingly for the last 2 chapters. I hope we'll get it all done before Purim, but if we'll see Mitzvah Hashem next week.